Okay, so from here starts your speaking test. This is the speaking mock test of the International English Language Testing System taking place in Ross IELTS Academy. The candidate is Tao. The candidate number is 01613278. The examiner is Luisa Meinos, examiner number 443577. Good evening, my name is Luisa. Would you please tell me your full name?
My full name is Mai Phương Thảo.
And can I see your identification, please?
Here you go.
Okay, thank you so much. Then let's get started with part one. So in the first part of the exam, I will ask you some personal questions. First, I'd like to ask about what you do. What is your present area of work?
Actually, I'm currently in between jobs. I am studying English in a language center and preparing for my further study in the UK this coming September.
And why did you choose your previous domain of work?
My previous work is a merchandiser at a e-commerce platform named Shopee. As you know, e-commerce industry is now one of the most developed industry. So I want to challenge myself in this industry. Also, I want to explore the reason behind Shopee's rapid expansion.
Now let's move on to talk about music. What kind of music do you prefer?
Most of young people now are fond of listening like EDM or hip hop music, but personally, I like some music which is calming and like acoustic pop ballad, I say.
Are you fond of learning any musical instruments?
Actually, I had learned playing piano and organ when I was young, but at that time, my mom forced me to learn it, so I didn't enjoy. Now I almost forgot everything about it.
Does music help you ease in any way?
What do you mean, like relax or?
I can repeat my question. Does music help you ease in any way?
Like, what do you mean by ease?
Okay, I can rephrase the whole thing. Does music help you to relax in any way?
Yeah, sometimes. I think music is an important part of our life. Every time I listen to my favorite song, I feel it's helped me. It's cheer myself up, and I feel like it's just recharge my battery.
Now let's move on to talk about cakes. Do you like eating cakes?
Actually, sweets is not my cup of tea because when I eat too much sugar, I would feel tired. But I like some chocolate or coffee flavor cake like tiramisu or cappuccino cake.
Do you know how to bake a cake?
Yeah, I don't know how to bake, but I really want to try it. The fact is, I don't have enough equipment at home, so I can't bake any cakes. But I always watch some video about baking cake on YouTube.
Okay, thanks so much. That's it for part one. That means now moving on to part two. So in part two, I'm going to give you a card with a topic, and I'd like you to talk about that for 2 minutes. Before you start, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. So you should describe a talent that you have and want to improve. And your 1 minute of preparation starts right now. All right, so your 1 minute is up. You may start speaking now.
Okay, so today I will share you a talent I think I'm good at and I want to improve it as well. I'm not sure this can call be a talent in traditional sense, but I'm gifted at organize things and planning. I'm not sure I get it from my parents or not, but I'm quite good at it. For example, like I really like uh, planning for a trip. Actually, every time I travel with my friend, I am the only one who organized everything from booking for flight, hotels, and organize activities during the trip. I really enjoy doing that, and mm, and I feel comfortable to organize, how I can harmonize all my friends' preferences and activity into a perfect plan. But my friend always say that my plan would be more perfect if I can put some budget plan on it because I'm not good at math and numbering. So every time I plan, every like all of my plan is not really details or about the budget. So I really want to improve how I can manage money and budget, and I think it's very important for my future career. In the future, I want to open my own business. So knowing about financial stuff and
Thank you.
calculating.
That's your
Yeah.
2 minutes. That was it for part 2. So now moving on to part 3. So you've been talking about a talent that you have and want to improve. And now I'd like to ask you some questions that are related to this. Do you think talented people are happy people as well?
Mm, yeah, sometimes. I think talented people will maybe time save more time and effort to do well on special things that they are talented at. However, sometimes they will feel more stressful and pressures because everyone see them as they are good at it, so they have to be do the best.
How do you differentiate between talent and skill?
I personally, I suppose that talent is something in inherent trait, like they don't need to practice or work more on that to have it. But skills is something that you must practice. For example, like social skill. Uh, some people are like introvert. They need to practice more on talking with new people and how communicate well. So I think skill is something that can be practiced.
What are the talents that you have that you are proud of?
Like I said before, um, I'm really good at organizing and planning. Also, I'm disciplined people who always try to do everything on time. So I really hate distract from my original plan.
And how have these talents helped you to achieve what you have today?
Um, I would say that during my previous work, it helped me a lot because I work in e-commerce industry. So the environment here is very fast. So this talent helped me to manage the time and work well. So I always complete all of my tasks on time.
Have you ever developed a skill that you're proud of?
Mm, Actually, I don't have any specific talent that I remember I developed it. Yes.
What is a talent that a lot of people in your personal circle have?
Mm, I have one friend who is very good at storytelling, and I'm really envy with that because I'm an introvert. So it's very difficult for me to communicate well with people and how to craft a story, actually an interesting story. So every time I talk with that friend, I always fascinating by how he talk and tell stories.
Okay, thank you so much. This is the end of your speaking test now.
Speaking course. This course is made up of 5 offline speaking videos in which you will learn all the necessary tips and techniques to take the IELTS speaking test with a high score.
Tell me about your family. Do you like...
In addition to that, you will have access to useful grammar and vocabulary resources. Once you finish your course, you will have 1 online mock test of speaking, along with comprehensive feedback under the same exam conditions.
Interesting question. A very
Join us to become our next successful candidate.
All right, then let's get into some feedback, see how you did today. At first, I want to get started with some feedback on parts 1, 2, and 3, tell you about the requirements there and how you did according to that. And then later, I'll move on to your 4 IELTS criteria, give you each single score, and then in the end, you'll get an overall score, right? So part 1, as I mentioned in the beginning, is personal questions. That means it's supposed to be rather short questions, short answers. I'd say you did just fine in part 1, about 3 or 4 sentences is totally fine here. There's no need to go into too much detail because you can save that for parts 2 and 3. In part 2, then, you're supposed to, speak at length, cover the full 2 minutes. That's very important here, right? Because if you stop talking before that, you'll lose points in fluency and coherence and lexical resource. I think you did pretty well, right? Maybe in the middle, you struggled a little bit to keep going, but you still did. And that's the most important part, right? So always keep that in mind. Then part 3 is again about longer coherent answers. This is where you can develop your topic a little bit more and really elaborate on your ideas. So I would say some of your answers were really nice in part 3 and others may be a little bit too short. So it would be nice if you have, like a medium length maybe. They should be longer than in part 1. And, you can try to give a little bit more of information and give some more examples or details. I can also give you a few tips and tricks on how to keep going in a second. All right, that was it about the 3 parts. Now we can move on to your 4 IELTS criteria, being your fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and lastly, pronunciation. So let me actually start by saying I think you do have a good command of English. Maybe you were just also a little bit nervous today. That's a very unusual situation that you're in with the test. So I think in some parts, it's just about polishing up a few things that are specifically asked for in IELTS, right? But other than that, I think you do have a good idea of how to give a nice fluent answer. So let's get started with your fluency and coherence. As I said just now, I think the length of your answers was fine. Part 3, maybe make it a little bit shorter. And then part 2, I think you did nicely when both covering the full 2 minutes. And overall, you had a coherent story that you were telling. Maybe just in between, you jumped a little bit back and forth between your ideas, right? So I would recommend you try to really write down a clear structure, maybe some very clear bullet points for part 2 that you can, use to go step by step through your answer to actually fill the full 2 minutes. If you happen to, use up your bullet points within, I don't know, like 1 minute. That can happen, of course, even though it's structured. You could try to go off topic a little bit, or give an example, give more details about something. Maybe you can give an example of something that you organized, your journey, an event, whatever, right? When you're talking about that. Or go off topic and talk about something that is related, but that's not exactly what was asked for, right? So this is just about relating to the question. So of course you have to use something that is relevant to the question at first, but then as long as it makes sense how you're getting to your other topic, that's totally fine if you end up at a different topic than what you started with. That's also important maybe sometimes for part 3, when you have a topic that you're not too familiar with, that you don't know how to answer your questions. You can always go off topic, try to find something that you maybe have better vocabulary for, that you feel more comfortable with, and so on. All right. Then what you also did nicely in your fluency and coherence were your connectives. You had a very nice range of connectives and discourse markers. For example, you used things like personally, at that time, for example, I think, I suppose, however, and so on. So just always keep in mind to use as wide of a range here as you can, just as you did today. Show what you know, show that you do know this range of connectives, and then you should be fine. Overall, I think you had a little bit of hesitation and some self-correction in there still. I would say most of the time it was because you were looking for, say, the perfect word that you can use in the context, right? And I can totally understand that you would want to, show off what you know and use your collocations and so on. But let me tell you, the perfect word does not really exist. It's the one that you can use without pausing to have a fluent sentence, right? So maybe just go for it when you're struggling. And then in another sentence, you can bring in your collocations or your idioms, right? Just try to be a little bit more fluent in these instances and do not stand in your own way pretty much, right? For example, in part 2, that was the case. You had quite a few hesitations in between. It was because, one, you were looking for some things to say, and then in other instances, it was because of language. So, I think if you can manage to reduce these, that would really help your overall fluency and coherence. Okay, that was a lot of talking, I know, about your fluency and coherence. For today, I gave you a 6 here. But as I said, I think if you can reduce your hesitations a little bit, you might even be able to get a higher score here. All right, Now moving on to your lexical resource. I would say you have very nice vocabulary, right? You really know how to use the words that you know in a natural way. You really feel comfortable with, some more complex structures. And you had a nice range of some collocations and idioms that you used. For example, you said, I'm in between jobs. Explore the reason why, it's not my cup of tea, or to harmonize preferences and so on. Those were great expressions. Definitely try to use these in your actual test. That's always a plus, that you know how to use them naturally, right? Because you should not force your expressions in there, your idioms. Sometimes they end up not making 100% sense. So always use these that you're comfortable with, right? You also had very nice paraphrasing going on, right? So for example, you used I'm fond of instead of prefer, or enjoy instead of like. So that was very nicely done. Always keep that up. You can never paraphrase enough pretty much, right? Always remember to even rephrase the questions that you hear from the examiner. That's always helpful. But I would say today you did pretty well. And part 2, you had a few repetitions, I would say, when you were unsure what to say next. Of course, this can happen when you're kind of struggling with the fluency, that you start to repeat yourself. That sometimes does happen, right? But I think as long as you have a clear structure here and know where you're going, that you should be fine. So overall, I gave you a 7 for your lexical resource. I think you did very nicely here. Now moving on to your grammar and accuracy, pretty much the same thing. You have some very nice grammar. You had some nice complex structures in there. For example, some conditional clauses or relative clauses, subordinate structures, and so on. And you also show that you know a range of tenses. And that was great, right? Because it's about a range of complex structures as well as tenses, which you did today, right? So always be sure to use as wide of a range as you can. Show what you know, show the complex things that you know about. I would say as for tenses, sometimes here and there they were a little bit off. And the instances where you were trying to use like a complex structure, but it would have been the easier one, right? So don't overcomplicate it for yourself, maybe, right? Maybe the easy way is the correct way sometimes, but that was not often, right? So you still did a good job here. And then I just have 3 little things that I noticed that sometimes still happen is first of all, you're sometimes forgetting about your articles. So for example, you said in traditional sense. It's either in the traditional sense when you're talking about, for example, a specific country, or you say in a traditional sense, right? But it needs an article in between. Or your third person as sometimes, sometimes it, you put it at the wrong word, or it's just missing. For example, you said, it's helped me, it helps me, right? Or you said, everyone see them, everyone is third person, so everyone sees them, right? And same goes for your plural as sometimes that is just missing. But these are just, some little grammatical mistakes that often happen, that I hear often, right? So, just always keep an eye on these little things that, they don't get too much, but I wouldn't, it was not too bad. So I still gave you a 7 for your grammar and accuracy. All right, and now moving on to the last one, your pronunciation. I would say overall you have some nice pronunciation, right? Because you also know a few complex words. The only thing that I would say is sometimes it was a little bit unclear, some words. So be sure to be very clear about what you're saying to avoid misunderstandings, right? Maybe that can even help. What can help you is if you speak up a little bit, be louder. I know it's sometimes difficult when you say you're an introverted person. Of course, that's sometimes hard. But I think confidence can be really key in those tests, right? Even if you're faking it, that's all right. Even fake confidence is enough. So, try to speak up a little bit, be confident about what you know, because you do have good English. It's just about showing it, right? So be a little bit clear about what you're saying. And as for your intonation and rhythm, I would say you had some nice kind of a melody in there, with some ups and downs. Maybe in the instances where you were not sure what to say, your voice was a little bit monotone. But I think you do have a good idea of how to have the, a natural intonation in your speaking. So always remember to keep that up throughout your whole test, and just show what you know and be confident about that. Maybe that can help you a little bit, right? Today I gave you a 6 for your pronunciation. That means that you got an overall 6.5 for today. So I am pretty confident. Of course, I cannot predict the future, but I am pretty confident that you can reach the score that you want to have, because you do have great knowledge. You had some nice answers in there. So, just trust yourself in the process a little bit. And then I'm sure you're going to do just fine in your test. All right?
Yes.
Cool.
Actually, I'm quite struggle with the part 3 because I don't know how to generate my ideas fast. And that's why I give the short answer. So how can I improve?
I think for you, then it would be the easiest way if you go off topic, right? Maybe you have something that, I don't know, your work, or I don't know, animals, cooking, whatever, that you personally know a lot about. And there is pretty much like in every topic you can find something that you can relate to something else, right? So maybe that's the easiest way to go. Or for example, as you did in the last question I gave you, you just gave me an example of a friend, and then you talked about that friend. And that is a very good idea, right? Because that makes it easier to keep going when you're talking about something personal or an example from a friend. You can even lie. That's totally fine, right? So I would say giving examples and going off topic would then be the best idea for you. Okay.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any other questions that I can help you with?
Yeah, I think that's all.
Okay, cool. Then what did you think of this test today overall? Was it useful for you?
Yeah, I think it's very nice. Thank you very much for the help.
You're very welcome. No problem at all. And would it be okay for you if we share this video on our YouTube channel?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Then that's it for today. Best of luck to you with your further practice, and best of luck with your test, of course, as well. And have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so can I
Yes.
ask how you send this video to me? Through
It will
email
show up in the Skype chat. No, you can download it on Skype. It would automatically be sent once we hang up. That takes a few seconds, and then you'll have it in the chat, and there you can download it. All right?
Oh, yeah, I see. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.